Welcome to Encounter Wargaming. I'm Jay, and today we're going to be building some crazy little alien cacti. So, Orktober is upon us, and I thought, it's been a while since I built some more pieces for my ork table, for the ork table that we built for our battle reports. I started building it a while back with the intention of bringing it to the hog towner, and I actually didn't get it done by then, so maybe it'll make it to next year's, but in either way, I wanted to build an ork table for myself because obviously orcs are my first army. They're my favorite army out of all of the crazy armies in Warhammer 40,000, and in fact they're the only real comic relief left in the game, so you gotta love your orcs. And this October, Games Workshop is planning to release a whole bunch of new orc stuff. New buggies, new rules, everything, and it's so exciting for me because we never get a new book right away. It seems they go 2 editions without giving the orcs a new book a lot of the time. So anyway, long story short, I've decided this week to make true on my promises in the Relics of the Dark Age video. For those of you who watch my Relics of the Dark Age videos, where I go through all of these sort of old school books and old school models and stuff like that. In quite a few of the second ed pictures, we saw, well, these cacti, which are basically just styrofoam balls with some toothpicks and, of course, a pro paint job by yours truly. And I've said in those videos, I kept seeing these in all the pictures, and I said in those videos, I'm going to do that as a terrain tutorial one day. Oh, I'm going to do that as a terrain tutorial one day. Hey guys, I'm going to do this in the future. So I figure it's about time I make true on my promises, right? And so I've decided to make a few bases of these to help expand my ork table, since it is on some kind of weird sort of Skraptown world. They look very orky, they look very alien, and they look like something that would grow in a harsh environment, in a harsh ash waste environment that I'm, trying to make this table. I didn't want this table to have a lot of life to it, in the sense of like growing plants and stuff like that, but I think cacti are a good thing for an ash waste, because cacti tend to thrive in very harsh conditions. And as you can see here, I haven't even used real grass. It's just kind of like a weird moss that I've put on everything. It's actually flock as opposed to static grass, a very dark flock, so it creates that sort of like moldy moss look. And yeah, so anyway, without further ado, let's actually get in to start building these things. Alright, so we're just going to start with a piece of foam core. I've just cut it into a weird like kidney bean shape and then beveled the edges. And I've done that on multiple pieces because I'm going to build a bunch of these. But I'm just going to start by covering it completely in spackle, and this will prevent warping and stuff in the future. So it's time to prepare my toothpicks. I'm just going to cut a bunch of toothpicks all in half, just a whole bunch of them. I decided to use pretty much this entire container. And if I have leftovers, I have leftovers. So what? It's like $1 for like 100 or for 300 of these things. So it's all good, right? And then, of course, I'm just going to take all my little styrofoam balls and just start poking in toothpicks all over the place at all kinds of random angles. Now you want to make sure you leave like one sort of side blank, and that'll be the sort of the bottom side, I guess, for it to sit on. And yeah, just fill these things up with thorns as much as you feel necessary. So then before I glue them down, I actually just want to put all the sand on my base. Usually I do this after I put the terrain piece together, but this time around I figured it's going to be hard to get underneath of the styrofoam balls, and so I don't want to get sand all over them. So I'm just going to cover my spackled base in basing sand. And for this I just use playground sand, the stuff you buy a big bag of it for $5. And you can do a whole bunch of terrain pieces. I've used this same bag for like a year. And then I basically, because the styrofoam balls really soak up a lot of the paint, I'm just going to cover them all in PVA glue. And not only will that seal a lot of the pores so that they don't soak in the paint, but it'll also help the toothpicks stay in, because PVA glue is basically wood glue, and so it'll stick to the styrofoam. Now I've got this weird goop stuff that I've never tried before, and I thought I would try it on them because hot glue and super glue tend to melt the styrofoam. And I was kind of hoping that this stuff wouldn't melt the styrofoam, it would just kind of stick it, because it's kind of just an all-purpose adhesive. But it actually turned out to melt it a little bit, so I would suggest using something like epoxy or Gorilla Glue or something like that that doesn't melt the styrofoam. But then once they're fully primed,
black, I'm just going to go ahead and dry brush some gray over top of them, like a nice stone gray, like a dawn stone, I guess if you're going to find a citadel equivalent. And then once that's completely painted, completely dry brushed I should say, with gray, I'm just going to dry brush a final dry brush with like a light bone color, just to tie it in with all the other terrain pieces, provide that sort of final highlight. But I've done that on all the other orc terrain pieces so far, so of course I want it to match, so I'm just going to finish it off with that. And then now that the bases are fully painted, I can actually start painting the cacti. Now I want to make sure I don't get my green paint on the base itself, since the base is pretty much done. If you make a little boo-boos here and there, it's okay. But I want to make sure that I get at least 2 coats of that green, and for this I'm using just a dollar store craft paint, sort of camo green color. So here I am putting on the second coat, just making sure that it's a nice even color, because it's going to look really streaky and splotchy on top of the black if I didn't add a second coat. These cheaper paints tend to need a couple of coats, and that's okay because they're cheap, so I've got lots of it to use. And now that I've done that, I'm just going to do a little bit of sponge painting. I just want these to lighten up a little bit and create a little more dynamic to them. And I've just got a square piece of foam from a pluck foam case that I had. And I'm just basically I've mixed the camo green with some yellow, about 50-50. And then I'm just kind of soaking the sponge in it and then rolling it on some paper towel to get most of the paint out. And then I'm just going around and hitting all of the cacti with the sponge paint. Be careful while doing this because the toothpicks are sharp. Just take your time, go around, make sure you get everywhere with the highlighted yellowy green, and just try not to stab yourself, alright? Because it can happen, so take your time. And then I'm just going to go around with some brown and paint all of the thorns. Now again, you want to be very careful not to get the brown onto your green or onto the base too much, because both those colors are finished at this point. If we got to do a couple touch-ups later, we got to do touch-ups, but take your time, try to do your best, and it'll turn out awesome. And then once my brown's dry, I'm just going to take a little bit of red and go about halfway down each thorn, so that I have the sort of cinnamon brown color closest to the cacti itself, and the tips of each thorn will be sort of blood red, a bright red, making them look very toxic and just kind of finishing off the cacti and giving them, that, I guess, second head personality and appearance, just like the ones we saw in the old codices. And of course, I got a little bit of paint here and there from my cacti and from my thorns on my base. Some of the areas where I dry brushed didn't look too great. So as always, we're going to use our flock. I mean, usually I use static grass, but this time I'm using a really dark green flock to just cover up all your errors. Go around with some PVA glue. It adds not only another level to the terrain piece, but like I say, it's a great way of covering your mistakes very quickly without having to do too many touch-ups.
Alright, so there's our finished product. The awesome alien cacti for our orc table. I think they turned out pretty good. They look pretty sweet to me. I hope you guys liked seeing that. Now, of course, you can decorate them the same way I've done all the grass table and stuff like that. You don't have to go this sort of Ashway City fight like I've done here. I just wanted to incorporate these into my orc table, so of course I'm going with that aesthetic, but that is what it is. I also decided to build these little guys while I was waiting for like drying time and stuff like that. Just some little scrap piles to throw around my orc table. It's basically just all of the junk I had lying around my table, pieces of popsicle sticks, extra spackle and stuff like that. And then I just added a few little details. Some orc skulls, like that right there, orc skull, a little random banner pole I had kicking around and stuff like that. So anyway, that's not the focus today. Today was the focus of the cacti, and I think they turned out awesome. So I hope you guys enjoyed that tutorial. I found it wicked fun. I'm going to love putting these on my table. Now, they're not massive line of sight blockers, but they could provide cover for a unit pretty easily. You know, if that's sort of +1 to your armor save. You could definitely play it like that, and I think we will be playing it like that. But I really just saw these in all of the old 2nd Ed books and thought, I have to make those. It's just too easy an idea not to make them. So super quick, super easy, very inexpensive. You know, you go to your Dollarama and buy a bunch of toothpicks and styrofoam balls. a little bit of foam core, and you've literally got some wicked cool, I guess, forests, for lack of a better word. But of course, you know, like I say, this planet is an ash waste, so I didn't want to make it too alive, so I thought cacti would be perfect for the orc table. Especially because I saw these in all the second ed books, and my orcs I've been playing since 2nd edition. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. I had a lot of fun building it. Like I say, if you liked it, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, because that way you'll see a whole bunch more tutorials as I come out with them. We don't just do tutorial, guys. We do battle reports, we have a podcast, we do all kinds of hobby tutorials. I mean, there's always new stuff coming out, so if you like our content, please hit subscribe, because it goes a long way to help us here, and it lets you stay up to date on what we're doing. Go to the description below, check out our Patreon campaign for as little as $1. Even just a simple $1 a month goes a long way to help us, because it basically just allows us to compensate for the costs of running a YouTube channel, and for, you know, building gaming tables and getting into various gaming systems. We play multiple games, not just 40K, and it gets you a whole bunch more stuff. It gets you our normal video content early, it gets you 10% off the warpainter.com, as well as a whole bunch more. I don't want to go into it in too much detail because it's all on the Patreon page, so go to the description below and check out our Patreon. Basically just like, comment, subscribe, and share this with your friends, and we'll see you at our next encounter.
Like a monkey in a rocket on his way back home. Okay.